Welcome back to Effective Communication Part 2. My name is Vanessa. I'm with the Edmonton Oliver Primary Care Network location, and we hope that you were able to use some of the skills that were brought forth in Part 1. And again, I'm here leading it with, and I have my co-lead here.
Hi, my name is Candace. Thank you guys for tuning in to Part 2. We are excited to have you guys here again with us. We are going to continue to learn about communication, and we hope that you will be able to get bits and pieces and tricks and tips that you can use in your everyday life. Thank you.
So we'll just kind of start us off here with a little video, and hopefully you find it kind of a little bit entertaining, and then we'll go into a couple other things. So just give me a moment here and we'll get this all set up for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, make this big. Oh.
I want this. For some people, it's the easiest thing in the world to say. Life's pretty nice for these kinds of assertive people. They usually end up with the window seat on airplanes, the last slice of pizza, and the cubicle that's not by the bathroom. I hope he flushed. But not everybody is naturally assertive, even if they're loud. If you're like a lot of members on the Wellcast team, you might not be as comfortable talking about yourself. Saying what you want or what you think when you're around a lot of people can be really difficult. Okay, well, today we've got 4 quick tips on how to be more assertive in every aspect of your life. At school, at work, or in a nerve-wracking situation, like having to tell your parents that you dinged the car. I'm so sorry. You ready? Tip 1, hold on to your nuts. Yep, this is an acronym borrowed from the author Wayne Levine. It stands for non-negotiable, unalterable terms. Basically, your boundaries. When you find yourself stuck in an uncomfortable position, ask yourself, what are the most important things to me in this situation? What do I absolutely refuse to compromise? Your nuts should include something broad, like my health, or something specific, like my A average in biology. Either way, once you know what your priorities are, it'll be easier to fight for them. Tip 2, be simple, honest, and direct. Don't be passive-aggressive or coy. It's annoying. If a waiter brings you a kale salad and you ordered a cheeseburger, don't wait until the end of the meal to undertip. Have him send it back. If you're honest and direct, rather than waffly and underhanded, things are more likely to work out in your favor. At the very least, you've done yourself a favor by making your needs known. Tip 3, fake it till you make it. Hey, here's a secret. If you act assertive, you will start feeling assertive. So, how do you know to do that? Well, use your body language and your voice to make your presence known. Practice good posture. And speak in an authoritative volume. Please do not touch anything on my desk. It smells in there. Are you flushing? I know you didn't wash your hands. Be an eagle, not a turtle. I know, just let me tease this metaphor out a little bit. It's a little weird. Do be an eagle. Don't be a turtle. Don't thrust your shoulders forward or slump. You look like you're apologizing for yourself. Do straighten your back. Stick your chest out. Breathe evenly and deeply. Don't dart your eyes about. It's gonna look like you've got something to hide. Pro tip, if you're nervous about maintaining eye contact, look at someone's nose or forehead. You'll seem more engaged and in control. We tried this, it actually works. Do speak up. Seriously, I can't even hear you right now. Tip 4, use I statements instead of you statements. This way, you can express what you want without being accusatory. To wit, what follows is the wrong way to tell your roommate to do the dishes. You'd never do the dishes. There's a pile of them in the sink right now, and it's old enough to be carbon dated. Here's the right way. I I feel like I've been doing more than my fair share of the dishes lately. I'm pretty tired when I get home from work. Could you help me out? See? You expressed your frustration without sounding like a nag. The assertiveness goldmine. All right, you've completed your primer for being assertive. Remember, figure out your priorities, be straightforward and honest, maintain good posture, eye contact and volume, and use I statements. Go forth, wellcasters. You're ready to tell that waiter that you ordered a cheeseburger.
Perfect.
Nice. All right. There we are. We are up. All right.
Perfect.
Perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. So that video was just talking about different tips and tricks that we can use to maintain our assertive position, and also how to practice being more assertive. So they gave us the acronym NUTS. So really what we are focusing on is just remembering the non-negotiable, unalterable terms, which really means we are remembering our boundaries, we are sticking to them, we are communicating in a way that's effective, we are being assertive, and we are also being respectful at the same time. I hope you guys had fun watching that video, because I did.
So moving into what are personal boundaries. So when we talk about communication, boundaries kind of interplay with this, right? So we want to look at personal boundaries, which are the limits and rules that we set for ourselves within relationships. So you can kind of follow along on the page of what are personal boundaries in your attached resources. A person with healthy boundaries can say no to others when they want, but they're also comfortable with opening themselves up to intimacy and close relationships. So we have to remember that these boundaries come along with different types of boundaries. So as we talk about different types of boundaries, first one might be physical boundaries, which is our personal space and physical touch. Intellectual boundaries, which are our thoughts and ideas. Emotional boundaries, which are a person's feelings. Sexual boundaries include quite a few, so the emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects of sexuality, as well as material boundaries, your money and your possessions. Time boundaries, how a person utilizes the time and whether someone respects them.
Right. So now we know what are the different types of boundaries. Now it's also important for us to know how to set these boundaries. So these are some tips for knowing how to set healthy boundaries. So one, know your limits, know your values, listen to your emotion, be true to yourself, have self-respect, have respect for others, be assertive, consider the long-term view. And now we can look at the resources that you have and just refer to the explanation for each of these tips for setting healthy boundaries.
As we move forward, some of those boundaries might include refusing a request. So we want to kind of explore this a little bit further. Why is it hard to refuse a request from someone? People struggle with assertiveness when saying no. You might be afraid of hurting or disappointing the other person, or might not believe that you have the right to say no. You might be afraid the other person will get angry, or might have poor awareness of what you want. What does it look like when someone is bad at refusing a request? They might be avoidant, or forget a commitment, or be purposefully late. They might respond with anger because they think the request is unreasonable or insensitive. Justifying a blow up, so we want to ask ourselves, well, what type of communication style is this? It's a little bit more of that either aggressive or the passive aggressive type. Do you ever feel guilty when saying no? This is pretty common. And we often may feel responsible for others or our job to oblige and meet other people's needs at the cost of our own. It could be difficult as well if we often are in a role of a caregiver or have maybe other supportive roles, and we've become accustomed to saying yes to everyone, sort of that yes man, so to speak. Adjusting this might feel awkward because it's not the norm when we use these roles. It's important to acknowledge our own needs, and it's going to feel uncomfortable at first before it starts to feel comfortable. It is important to be able to say no. So you might ask yourself, do I often find myself saying yes when I really want to say no? And if the answer is yes, then you're most likely adding to your stress levels, even causing anxiety and depressive symptoms to build, as well as feelings such as resentment, anger, and feeling overwhelmed. This can lead us to potentially avoiding people in the future.
Right. So in it, so continuing from Vanessa, where we are practicing or learning how to refuse requests, it's also important for us to know the fair fighting rules. And when we say fighting here, we're just talking about when there may be a disagreement in communication. So one, before you begin, ask yourself, why do I feel upset? Just check in with your emotions just to see what's going on. It may be important also at this stage just to use a pen and a piece of paper just to write that down, just to get that out. Then the next thing we focus on is discussing one issue at a time, just to reduce the likelihood of confusion and also to reduce the likelihood of a greater argument. Just bring up one thing that we are not comfortable with at a time. No degrading language, being respectful, being kind. Always remember that even when we're being assertive, we are being kind and gentle with our words. Express your feelings with words and take responsibility for them. So instead of perhaps using a nonverbal to express what we are feeling, assuming that the person will understand, it's important for us to use words. And it's also important for us to take responsibility for them. And a big part of taking responsibility for our emotions is about using I statements, being clear and being comfortable with saying, I feel this way. Take turns talking. We really don't need to interrupt each other, and we need to listen and just respect what the other person is saying. No stonewalling. What does that mean? Stonewalling is a way in which we refuse to communicate or cooperate with someone. We may say, I am not talking to you right now. But if you are not ready to talk, it's also okay to take a moment. And you can ask the person, is it okay for me to take a moment and collect my thoughts? And then we can talk about this at a future time. No yelling. Control your emotions and your temper. Be kind. Remember, we also communicate with our tone. Nonverbal communication is also important. Take a time out if things gets heated. It's okay to say, I need a break. It's okay to step away and check in with your emotions and just to see what's going on, just to be able to calm down and ground yourself before you get back in that communication. Attempt to come to a compromise or an understanding. A compromise doesn't necessarily mean that you become passive. It means that you understand what the person is saying, and you're open to listen to other opinions and thoughts about this discussion or problem.
In addition to the fair fighting rules, there is such a thing as a good fair fight. So we want to look at the disagreements, personal and non-personal. Q-tip. Has anyone heard of that before? If not, it's quit taking it personally. So think of that when you're in an argument or maybe a confrontation. Remember that it's not personal if someone disagrees with your ideas. When you're having a more personal disagreement with someone, remember that the goal is not to win, because this means that somebody else has to lose. The idea is to come to an agreement that will help the relationship to continue and for the resolution to be that that both of you can accept it, even if it's not exactly what either of you wanted. Work on resolving the problem instead of winning the argument. Think about possible solutions to the problem and be willing to compromise. Never make empty threats or promises that you don't intend to follow up with. Making such threats or promises will teach the other person to not take you seriously. Nobody can read your mind. We have to be open and share our thoughts and feelings and be vulnerable and taking that risk to become vulnerable. Celebrate your success. Talk about how you both effectively resolved an argument and what went well, not what didn't go well.
And now we're going to look at assertiveness not only as a skill, but as a right, meaning that we have the right as individuals to be assertive. And because we have the right as individuals to be assertive, we also understand and appreciate that others also have the right to be assertive. So an assertive frame of mind would say something like, I won't allow you to take advantage of me, and I won't allow you for being who you are. So a right is a freedom that we have to act in a particular way. In this case, there are 9 freedoms you have when you are assertive. And there are also 9 responsibilities that you have. Take a closer look at the resources that will tell you in greater detail what are your rights and what are your responsibilities when being assertive.
You can follow along in your resource handout. We are going to go through them in the video, but take a look at the resource package for the assertiveness rights and responsibilities to follow along. So number 1, assertiveness rights and responsibilities. You have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. You also have the responsibility to treat others with the same dignity and respect that you desire from them.
Assertiveness rights and responsibility number 2. You have the right to decide what's best for you, and you have the responsibility to allow others to decide what is best for them also.
Assertiveness rights and responsibilities number 3. You have the right to express your own feelings and opinions, and you have the responsibility to express those feelings and opinions in a way that does not insult or put others down.
Assertiveness rights and responsibility number 4. You have the right to ask for what you need. You also have the responsibility to allow others to refuse your requests.
Assertiveness rights and responsibilities number 5. You have the right to say no without feeling guilty, and you also have the responsibility to allow the others the right to say no.
Assertiveness rights and responsibilities number 6. You have the right to be listened to and to be taken seriously. You have the responsibility to listen to others and take them seriously also.
Assertiveness rights and responsibilities number 7. You have the right to make mistakes, and you have the responsibility to accept the consequences of those mistakes.
Assertiveness rights and responsibility number 8. You have the right to all of your human weaknesses and limitations without guilt or shame. You have the responsibility to allow others their weakness without ridiculing them and resenting them.
Assertiveness rights and responsibilities number 9. You have the right to do what is necessary to protect your physical and mental health, even though this sometimes requires a non-assertive or aggressive behavior and discomforting others. You have the responsibility to do this in a way that causes the least amount of harm to both yourself and others.
So now we're going to explore our beliefs about assertiveness, and we're going to do a bit of self-reflection. So we would like you to just take some time to reflect on your own beliefs about assertiveness. After learning about the rights and responsibilities that we have in regards to assertiveness, have all your beliefs about assertiveness changed at all? Did you modify anything? Did you tweak anything? Did you edit anything? What is an unhelpful belief about assertiveness? Or would you like to change or dispute that? Is it no longer working for you? What would you like to address or modify? So now is the time for us to do a bit of self-reflection. So after we have reflected, it's important for us to explore listening. So active listening. So what is listening and what is active listening? Does it mean that because you're hearing what someone is saying, meaning that you are actively listening to them? So a part of active listening is that we're choosing to listen, meaning that I am choosing to give my attention to the person who is speaking. Similarly, you have decided to be a part of this workshop, meaning that you have decided to give Vanessa and I your attention to listen to us. Also, when you're doing active listening, you are hearing the message. So you are more aware of more than the words that the person is saying. You are also paying attention to the tone, the pitch, the voice, and the rhythm of how the person is speaking. Evaluate the message and don't necessarily jump to an assumption. If you are not sure, ask a clarifying question. Ask someone. Be vulnerable enough to say that I don't understand, and I am not going to assume. I would like you to explain this for me. Respond to the message. Be certain that you have understood the message before you respond to it, and be clear in your response. Control your emotional hot buttons. Be aware of your own pet peeves when other people are speaking, like phrases, statements, and gestures that immediately moves you into a defensive or just an angry space. Remember, you have control over how you react. You always do, but you need to be aware of them before you can control them.
So more active listening tips. Listen to the person instead of thinking about what you're going to say. So that goes along with what Candace said, is that we're listening to the words. We're really, really consumed by what the person is saying. Make comfortable eye contact and don't tune them out. Use open body language, as mentioned before. Listen to others with the same care and attention that you want to be listened to. Challenge any tendencies to make assumptions or jump to conclusions. Try to put yourself in their shoes. See a different perspective and empathize with them. Check in with yourself to see how you're feeling. Clarify by using I statements, asking questions. Ask if you're understanding correctly. When using social media, check to see if you're understanding correctly by asking, not assuming that you're correct. I get the impression that you're angry. Are you? Listen to understand, not respond, and be present. Be in the moment. Be there with them. Be mindful of your body, their body, what's being said, and the situation. In the resource booklet, there are 2 pages that are about active listening with some fill-in-the-blank examples that you can work on in the future for your own self-reflection.
So now we're going to move on to paraphrasing. And then we can ask the question, why paraphrasing? But first, what is paraphrasing? So paraphrasing is simply restating what someone said in your own words. So this is a way in which you communicate to someone that, one, I am listening to you. It's a way in which you improve your understanding and your accuracy, because if you're saying to them, this is what I heard, is this what you meant? It's a way of clearing up any miscommunication that may have happened. It also shows the listener that you're interested in what they're saying and that you're listening to them. It also helps the speaker to just clarify their thoughts. And it also keeps the conversation on topic and encourages us just to go even deeper and to explore what is it that we're talking about.
I just want to note that a key point here with paraphrasing is the validation of what the other person said. So if someone mentions that you're not listening, that's where we want to start to clarify. We want to start to validate what the other person is saying, so that it notes to them that we were actively listening. This takes effort and work. Doesn't have to be used in every single form of communication, but it is definitely beneficial when someone really wants to be heard. And as well for yourself, you can even ask the other person, are you okay with just restating what I mentioned so that we're on the same page? You can ask someone to paraphrase as well. So some paraphrasing guidelines for yourself is that the sender needs to break down those long and complicated messages into smaller segments. So this might be important for you to set a timer for maybe 30 to 45 seconds max, so that that person can't have those long-winded, complicated messages, and then you're unable to paraphrase them. That's when we start to lose track and unfocused. When paraphrasing with someone, we also want to start something like, so what I'm hearing you say is, or just to clarify what you're saying is. So these are some very simple paraphrasing guidelines to kind of help you, to start you in the way of how to paraphrase. The receiver should not add to the message, right? So you kind of have to be on the same page here. And also we want to try to use the same words as the messenger, right? So if they're letting us know something and they're using specific words, we want to try to reiterate those words when we're paraphrasing. The receiver should not respond in their own feelings or thoughts about the message. It should just be literally a simple clarification of what was noted. Only used for important messages or when misunderstandings are thought to exist. This would get very tedious if you ask someone, oh, how was your day? They said, oh, it was great. You said, so what I hear you say is your day was great. It wouldn't be useful in that situation. So when only misunderstandings are thought to exist.
Perfect. So now we're going to look at the 3 essentials of communication. We need to be clear, we need to be open, and we need to be direct. And we can remember this acronym as COD, C-O-D, the essentials: clear, open, direct. So now we're going to look at calming techniques. So often when we are talking to someone, sometimes we get emotional. Sometimes we begin to feel anxious. We begin to feel physiological changes in our body, and we know that something is going on. So there are times in which we may need to use some techniques just to calm ourselves and just to relax and just to give ourselves a timeout. Yeah, that's right. Adult needs timeout too. So we need to be able to recognize our warning signs. What tells us that we are about to be angry or we're about to go into a very uncomfortable state? We need to know this. So we need to be mindful of this. So we need to be able to take a time out. So know that, okay, I need a break from this. So does this mean communicate to the person that I just need a few minutes to gather my thoughts, and then we will talk about this. Deep breathing, being able to step away and take big deep breaths in through your nose and release through your mouth. Exercise, being able to say, okay, I need a break. I'm going to jump on my treadmill for 10 minutes and I'm going to just do that, and then I come back to what's going on. Express your feelings versus bottling them up and not expressing them. Expressing them is always more helpful. In the event that you're becoming angry or agitated or uncomfortable, think about the consequences. Say it to yourself, if I react like this, what will happen? And if it's an undesirable consequence, say to yourself, I will choose to do something differently, or I will take a time out now because that consequence is not what I want. Visualization. Think of something that's calming and beautiful for you. Think about a scenery that you may like. For example, you may like the beaches. Sit and think about that and notice the way in which your breathing changes and your emotions begin to shift from one of perhaps anxiety or anger to a bit more of calmness. Use humor. Oh, laugh it out. Smile. They say laughter is the best medicine. Let's try this. grounding exercises. And what that means, grounding exercises is a way in which we can bring ourselves back to the present moment. So I'll give you an example of a quick grounding exercise that we can do using our 5 senses. So for example, something may be happening and you're feeling out of touch with what's going on because you're extremely anxious. You can say to yourself, okay, Candace, calm down. Look at 2 things that you're seeing in the room. And now look around in my room. I see a ring light. I see my laptop. Think of 1 thing that you're hearing. And I could say, I hear the fan or I hear my voice. Think of 1 thing that you're smelling. And you could say, I smell the coffee. Think of 1 thing that you're tasting. And you could say, oh, I taste the coffee that I was drinking. And you could also ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I touching? And you could say, I feel my hands and they're feeling sweaty. So that's a grounding exercise. And we can also do progressive muscle relaxation. So that's a way in which we focus on individual muscles by tensing and releasing them as a way of bringing us to a sense of relaxation or calmness.
Great. Thank you so much for going over those calming techniques. So now let's practice, right? What is an assertive response? So let's kind of go through some of these. So if you have your pen and paper there, so this is some self-reflection practice examples. So scenario 1, your mother wants you to come over to her house right away so you can help her sort through some items she wants to sell in the garage sale. You had planned to spend the evening relaxing, taking a soothing bath, and just lounging around because you've had a rough week at work. Take a moment, pause the video, and ask yourself, how would I respond? Remember the things we learned in part 1, using the desk script or using the I statements and other resources that you've learned in the past. So a sample response to this might be, I understand you need my help and I would like to help you. Today, however, I need to take some time for myself. I'm feeling very run down. I can better help you tomorrow. Would that work for you? Candace, feel free to go through the second scenario with everyone.
Okay, so the second scenario, you plan to meet up with your partner to have a nice meal at a restaurant. You get there, but they're late again. Every time you make plans, they seem to leave you waiting while they show up 20 to 30 minutes after the scheduled meeting. How would you respond to this? So you can go ahead and use like the desk script or the I statements, but a sample response could be something like, did something happen unexpectedly that made you late? I feel hurt whenever I have to wait time and time again because you're often late. It makes me feel anxious and it makes me feel as though I'm not a priority.
Awesome. So we hope that you were able to come up with a scenario for that one. Now, last scenario here, your roommate is known to get angry every time you tell them to clean up after themselves in the kitchen. How might you respond to this? What might you say? What I statements might you use? How would this make you feel? So a sample response, you can pause the video if you want before you hear this, but I feel overburdened when you don't pitch in and help it to keep the house clean and tidy. I understand that you don't like having me remind you to clean the kitchen, but it is a task that needs to get done and everyone needs to do their part. Are you able to clean up after yourself? So we can always have that ask at the end. Are you able to do this? Because remember, everyone has a choice, right? So, and we have to respect those choices. If it's a no, that they're not able to do that, then we have to come to a mutually agreeable compromise, right?
So now we're going to go to the big question. We're going to ask ourselves, what would we like to improve about the way we communicate? And we all have ways in which we want to improve. And the aim in improving your communication skills is not about perfection, but it's about progress. So just think about all that we have done so far in part 1 and part 2, and just think about, are there any ways in which I can improve my communication skills, or how would I like to improve how I communicate. So you can pause the video for a minute, grab your journal, grab your diary, or grab your piece of blank paper and just do a bit of self-reflection. What have I learned? And what would I like to change?
Great. A way of how to making what we want to improve in the way that we communicate is potentially by making SMART goals. So we'll refer to question 2, as Candace mentioned, on day 2 self-reflection handout. So secondary to that is that a SMART goal is going to help us kind of achieve this in the way that we want to communicate. So here's what a SMART goal might look like: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, as we think about this acronym. So specific, each goal should be clear so that we cannot mistake what we're stating we will accomplish. This way, you will have a higher chance of accomplishing it. So if we're very specific rather than broad. We want it to be measurable. So we want to know when we've successfully accomplished the goal. So maybe that when we can have a fair fight, so to speak, or maybe a fair fight only lasts 5 minutes. So we want it to be measurable. What makes it attainable? So we want to make sure that that goal and outcomes are both achievable and realistic so that you believe that you can do it. You know you best, right? You know your limits. You know what your boundaries are. So we kind of want to make sure that we can make it attainable. Make it relevant. The goal needs to be something that matters to you, something that's worthwhile accomplishing. We also want it to be timely, right? If goals go over a long period of time, it's unlikely that they're going to be achieved. Or maybe we have a long-term goal, so then we'll make shorter, SMART-term goals. So make sure that it's timely. Have a deadline or date for completing the goal that you'll be able to create a timeline for accomplishing it. This will kind of help set the precedence for what your goal is to look like and how you want to improve the way that you communicate.
So now we're almost at the end. So we're going to look at the summary. We're going to explore some of the key points and some of the important bits and pieces that we would love for you guys to take away. So first thing, there are 4 types of communication: aggressive, passive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. Assertiveness respects your needs as well as others' needs. So your unhelpful beliefs about assertiveness, what are they? So we should be in a very reflective place right now where we're thinking about our own beliefs. And we're also exploring what are some of the myths about assertiveness, and do I currently believe any of those myths? And if I do, how can I modify them and change that? And then there are also different skills in assertiveness that you can practice, like the I statement, the descript, the active listening, and practicing refusing and making requests. Also, remember your SMART goals. Remember how to create goals so that they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And also remember that the important thing is about progress and not perfection, and about being gentle with yourself. And just like how communication is a skill, that means that we can learn it, and it means that what we have to do is practice, practice, and more practice.
Thanks so much for wrapping that up for us, Candace. And as well, just continue to work on the descript and maybe getting feedback from people, right? Feedback from people is always great. As communication, we're always including another person in that. So some additional complications that can add to sometimes communication is obviously social media, texting, and such like that. So sometimes just pick up the phone, give them a call, and it might be a little bit easier to get what we want to say across. So kind of keep that in context as well. So if there's any questions, feel free to send an email or get in contact with the Edmonton Oliver Primary Care Network so that you can get in contact with either Candace or myself, Vanessa, and we'll be able to help you answer any of those if needed. You can also get online and look up the Center for Clinical Interventions workbooklet, which is Assert Yourself. And there's 9 different modules in that one that you're able to take a look at and self-reflect and work through. And it's definitely a great additional resource for you if you wanted to continue on with looking at and improving your communication style. We hope that you enjoyed this today. You can also go online and check out the survey here. So we want to make sure that we're helping you to the best of our abilities. If you have questions on with what we did today, or any quality improvement that you can kind of offer to us, or any thoughts about the class that you attended today online, please feel free to offer feedback, as we definitely appreciate that. So thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you enjoyed, and we wish you all the best in improving your communication skills.
Bye. Take care and all the best.